What's up, guys? They're doing construction outside my house. My voice is still sick, but you guys want to know how to make hard house, so today I'm going to be showing you how to make hard house like Newtone and Dart. I'm going to be showing you the lead you guys were wondering about. To go along this video, make sure to grab this template at the top of the description on my website. Really helps support me so I can keep bringing you guys the videos you want to see, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 140 BPM. First, we just have this big fat kick here. Main thing to notice is that it's actually a pretty long kick, even with the bass. It just works. Also, I made sure these are in tune as well, like if you actually pitch it up. Right, they're in harmony, so you're good. Then we have our bass line. Right, so what we're doing here musically, we're in the key of E minor, we're going root, third, sixth, fifth, and then here it's just root, third, sixth. So it's kind of like picking a few key voices and just sticking to those, right? And then also the rhythm, right? I mean, it's house music. It is hard house, so it's a very house rhythm. But it's obviously just way faster at 140. Now, the bass is made of 3 layers. If you listen to it on its own, you can really hear that. So we got our main sort of plucky, almost like trance bass. This is a saw wave, just one saw wave and operator with a low pass filter with just a short punchy envelope like that. Really simple. The reason I like using operators is the phase retrigger. If you guys want to know more about that, I can do a video on it. Let me know in the comments. Then we have auto pan here to make it kind of have like that faux sidechain without actually being sidechain. And it kind of grooves a little better sometimes too. Then we just got a little subcut. I'm just cutting a bit below 48 hertz, and then we're converting this to mono. Then we have this organ bass. But you hear in a lot of these tracks, it sounds really thin on its own, because this one in particular is meant to be layered, right? If you were going to do this on its own, maybe you would do a few things different, right? But in this case, I'm just using analog. We got 2 sine waves. It's a really simple recipe, just 2 sine waves, octave and 7 semitones apart. If you turn off the EQ, right, you can hear that more. Then I've just got the same auto pan, and then we're cutting out a bit more low end. And this one's converted to mono as well, just so we don't get phase issues. And then we have our stereo layer. So this is just a subtle unison saw wave thing, right? You can see I've got 1 saw wave here in Wavetable, low pass filter, not even with an envelope on it, and then just classic unison all the way up. It's just really meant to sit underneath the original bass and just be like a stereo layer. Like I said, these two really on their own don't do much. It's just kind of fortifying that first layer. And then we got the auto pan, and then I have a high pass on this as well. Then we got our drums. So pretty simple. We got a ride. I got the auto pan on that as well, and I'm also high passing it, very important. I've got this hi-hat, which is being high passed, and then I'm layering that with a shaker. You can see I pitched the shaker down quite a bit, and it's basically just to fill out the hi-hat a little more. Gives it a bit more, so it kind of bounces off the kick really well. Without it. Right, it's like a subtle thing to make the track more groovy, and then we got an 808 clap. Yeah, just a nice, really cracky one. Again, these classic sounds still work really well. Alright, then we got some percussion loops. Right, the classic sort of rave loop stuff, like the sped up house loops that have been really popular for the past few years. I've done a few videos on how to make these from scratch. These ones are from my Hard House Rave Loops Volume 1 pack. I'll also have that in the description. So I've taken 4 of these. It might seem like a lot, but it's really like, if you listen to the pro tracks and you're wondering why your tracks aren't quite matching up, a lot of times it's because you just need to be more fearless and use more of these, honestly. Right, you can hear it gives us a lot in the background in the track, and if you turn them off, the groove is still there, but there's some energy that these can only add. Cool. Then we got this drum rack. I'll play it with the kick so you can really hear what this is doing. Right, so it's just adding a bit of kind of groove percussion. Again, very housey. I think it works well to have the rave loops and then add this on top. This is just a bunch of different percussion samples I dragged into a drum rack, and then I've just made this groove using a few of them. And that's a good method too. Like, you could just grab a bunch of percussion hits and put them in a drum rack. You don't always have to be so, you can figure it out later, right? This just gives you a lot to work with. And then I got an auto pan on that, giving it like a side chain. And then the last drum is this little hi-hat. So yeah, it's just 16th note swing hi-hat. That's got an auto pan as well. All the drums together, the whole rhythm section together, because really I consider the bass part of that. There you go. So most of your percussion is really going to be up in the high end, but that's also where all the energy is. Then we got this little wavetable stab. So yeah, I was hearing sounds like this in a lot of those Newtone and Dart tracks that you guys recommended. I think one thing about this is a lot of times they're probably using audio, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a lot of different, old sample packs from the 90s and stuff, and new ones as well, that have these kinds of sounds. And there's really nothing wrong with doing that. I think in a lot of cases, a lot of those textures you hear that are coming from audio samples, you really couldn't recreate if you tried to just make it like this. But I tried my best, and I think it still works really well because it fits in with the other lead more so. Right? Like when you play them together, it kind of just all works. But I think there's still something you get if you just grab an audio kind of stab that you can't quite get. But anyways, to make this, what you're going to do is it's just wavetable. First of all, the note length is very important, I noticed. Like if you play this too long, right, you need to basically have it be, you're going to have this envelope which is moving everything inside of here. I'll show you in a second. And then basically you want the note to be as long as that envelope. Right, so you're basically going to do that. I recommend what you do is you make it and then you play a note that's like the perfect length and just record that. That's what I did. Because you can see it's not even like a perfect eighth note, right? Then what I've got here, okay, so we got a square wave with the pulse width and sync up a little bit. And then we have a saw wave with the same kind of things. The saw wave is 7 semitones up. So if you play that without it, right, you're going to be like close, but it's never going to quite get there. And then you bring that in. Right, it's really subtle. And then we got a bandpass filter. I have this on the 12 dB. I got a bit of resonance, I think very important for these kinds of things. And we got the drive up quite a bit. And then if you look into the matrix here, I have this one envelope, which I spent a lot of time shaping. That is really like, right, if that's changing all these different things, the pulse width and sync on both oscillators, plus the filter frequency, that's the thing I was saying you're going to work together with the note length. Right, so we got that. You can also play with some unison too. If you want, maybe like less voices. And just mess around with it. Then we're going into this short reverb with only a little tiny bit of it. And then I have a high pass filter and then an auto pan to kind of fake sidechain it. And that's another thing that makes it really fit in. You can hear without that. Right, it's a bit like in your face, but then you play that. And all of a sudden these things start to fit together really well. So then we have the elusive lead. So first of all, with this lead, I think part of this like magic that everybody likes about this lead is it's not just about like what notes the lead is playing, it's the fact that it's playing this basically the same thing that the bass line's playing. Right, like they move at the same time. They're both hitting C right there. They're both hitting, right, even this, like when the bass line goes to the B, I have this getting out of the way. When the bass line goes to G, this goes to G. They're just playing a different rhythm with it. So that I think is like a big lesson to learn from this. Is like it may even just be not even this like crazy sound design, which we'll get into, but really just like how everything really fits together in these tracks, and it's simple but concise. I think the other thing that's really important here is note length. You can see all these notes are a bunch of different lengths, and that's going to come into play more later with some of the modulation. But yeah, you definitely want to work with that. Like, that's part of the sound. Because you could hear that and be like, wow, what automations are they doing? What is all this? It actually can be done in a pretty simple way if you just work with more like note length. We got 4 layers inside of this instrument rack here. I have this one, this one, this one. So those 3 are based on the same patch, which I'll break down. And then this, an actual audio stab. So yeah, we'll get into that in a second. As far as the main layers, like I said, it's this wavetable thing where we've got just a saw wave and then some sync and then another saw wave with like a different sync setting. There's a high pass filter. Again, OSR setting is really good with the drive and a little bit of resonance. Not too much because it can get weird. Right, but you can definitely play around with that though. And then 12 dB. And then what's happening here is I have this envelope too set like that to like open up, but not right away. So if you play a short note, it stays in the same place, but then if you hold it down, you'll get the movement, right? And then that's where the note length thing comes in. And it allows you to still do these right? But then have the long held out kind of note do the modulation. Then, yeah, after that, I've got this classic unison here. Tiny amount of it, like not that noticeable. And then what we're doing is the second one is a very similar patch. No sync going on though. Just some saw waves and no unison, but the same thing with the filter. And then this one is again just another really similar patch layered in there. And then I've got this brass stab. So this is just like a brass stab. You can hear a little bit of a weird chord in there, but when you play them all together, right, it works really well, especially you hear it on that last note. Right, and this was the last thing that was breaking my brain, because like if you just have the wavetables, you're very close. But there's something about having that little audio stab, especially on that last note. Right, that just really gets it. So I basically got that. The only thing about this one is that I had to drag the start time. Right. Then what we're doing is after the instrument rack, we're going into a tiny bit of reverb and then this side chain here, right? We're just side chaining to the kick. But then there's also a send. So this is another thing about this lead is like the delay needs to be really clean and not get in the way. But it's going to be it still needs to be like a good amount of delay. So how do you do that? Well, you basically have to have this send here. And what you're going to do is, this is actually a technique a lot of people use on like pop vocals where you have your like delay. Right? That's just the send. Like that's what it's doing by default. But then you sidechain it to the instrument that you're actually putting through the send. So you have this very potent in-your-face delay that doesn't get in the way of the sound. And yeah, I tried a lot of different things. There's pretty much no way to get it this clean unless you do it this way. Like if you just have a delay on the track, you're going to have delay and maybe you can put a low, dry, wet and get kind of close. But this is how you really get the delay in your face, but then also like the instrument in your face. And yeah, then the last thing down here is some vocals. Right, so I've just got these like kind of funk style vocals, like the sped up hip hop vocals. I think really it's more about just getting them and like maybe it might start like this. Right, like that's what would fit over more of like a trap beat, and then you speed it up and pitch it up. And you get that rhythm that goes really nice over the hard house. Right, And then all I'm really doing on that is just sidechaining it. I think these are more about like you want the texture to kind of already be there and you're sort of borrowing texture rather than trying to create it with these, right? Anytime you get a vocal that's like really, really dry and you try to create the texture, you can end up, spending a lot of time doing nothing. But if you just get something like this that has texture because it's an old recording, and all that kind of stuff that comes with it, plus you're pitching it up, plus you're speeding it up, things are happening to the audio that make it cool. That's better than any saturation or compression that I could ever do. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Let me know if you want to see more Hard House or if you're getting sick of Hard House. Thank you again for the support, everybody. Make sure to grab this template, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.